The Japanese Grand Prix has always been a spectacle: tight racing, passionate fans, and just the right amount of chaos. But this year, Suzuka could deliver one of the most unpredictable races in recent history. And with so many unexpected twists already shaking up the F1 world, who will rise to the occasion? But can Yuki Tsunoda handle the pressure of his Red Bull debut at home? And will the rain turn Suzuka into an all-out warzone? It finally happened. Yuki Tsunoda is getting his shot in a Red Bull, and the timing couldn't be more dramatic. His home Grand Prix, a packed Suzuka crowd, and the added weight of representing Honda. For years, Tsunoda has been clawing his way up, trying to prove he belongs at the top. And while he's had flashes of brilliance, Red Bull has never been fully convinced, until now. But let's be honest, this wasn't a case of Red Bull suddenly realizing Tsunoda is the second coming of Senna. Liam Lawson struggled in the RB21, and Red Bull, always impatient, made the call. Tsunoda wasted no time rubbing salt in the wound, claiming Red Bull's car didn't feel all that challenging in the simulator, a statement that must have stung Lawson after he publicly struggled with it. Confidence? Yes. A little overconfident? Maybe. Either way, Tsunoda is walking into the most pressure-packed weekend of his life. And pressure does strange things to drivers. Will he rise to the occasion and prove Red Bull made the right choice? Or will he crumble under the weight of expectations, realizing that simulator sessions don't come with race day intensity, tire degradation, and a relentless Max Verstappen breathing down his neck? Max Verstappen is the king of Red Bull, and for the past few years, no teammate has come close to dethroning him. But now, Yuki Tsunoda steps into the second Red Bull seat with confidence. Maybe a little too much confidence. He's already downplayed the car's difficulty, which could either be a sign of supreme self-belief or a spectacular miscalculation. Max, of course, doesn't care about words, only results. And if Tsunoda dares to challenge him, he'll find out quickly why every other Red Bull driver since 2021 has either adapted or perished. But what if Tsunoda isn't just another casualty? What if, for the first time in years, Verstappen actually has a teammate who isn't resigned to playing second fiddle? There's a small chance, very small, that Tsunoda's aggressive driving style and home track advantage could make him look like a real contender this weekend. And if that happens, does Red Bull suddenly have a new problem? Historically, Verstappen hasn't been the biggest fan of wet races. If the predicted rain turns Suzuka into a survival test, Tsunoda, who knows this track better than anyone, could be a surprise factor. Could this race be the beginning of a genuine Red Bull rivalry? Or will Verstappen do what he always does, establish dominance early and remind everyone who runs the show? But Red Bull isn't the only team where tensions are rising. Over at Ferrari, things aren't exactly calm either. And if that wasn't bad enough, Hamilton has been facing a wave of criticism over his Ferrari move, with people questioning whether he can still deliver at the highest level. His response? Calling out the doubters and insisting that building success takes time. Classic Lewis. But words mean nothing in Formula One. He needs results. Suzuka is a chance to remind the world that he didn't join Ferrari just to fade into the midfield. He had a glimpse of success in the Chinese sprint race. Now he needs to translate that into a big Sunday result. And let's not forget, he's won here 5 times before. If Ferrari gives him a car that can compete, don't be surprised if Hamilton turns all that frustration into something special. Then there's Leclerc. He's been Ferrari's golden boy for years, but now he's sharing the garage with a 7-time world champion. That disqualification in China hurt both drivers, but for Leclerc, it might have hurt even more, because it erased what could have been a key statement against Hamilton early in the season. The pressure is on. Ferrari isn't a team that celebrates potential, they want results. And at Suzuka, Leclerc needs to prove that he's still the future of Ferrari. Both drivers have a point to prove. Both have been knocked down. The question is, who bounces back stronger? But while Ferrari's drivers battle to prove their worth, another team is dealing with a different kind of tension, one that's brewing between two rising stars. Now, they might have it, but with that comes an entirely different problem. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri aren't just teammates. They're two of the most talented young drivers on the grid, and neither one wants to play second fiddle. Suzuka could be a major turning point in this internal rivalry. Norris has been the de facto leader of McLaren since Daniel Ricciardo's exit, but Piastri isn't the kind of driver who will settle for being a number two. He's methodical, ruthless, and already shown glimpses of championship-caliber racing. When you have two incredibly quick drivers in an improving car, tensions are bound to rise. Just look at how things played out in Saudi Arabia. Piastri wasn't shy about racing Norris hard, and the team had to intervene to prevent things from boiling over. This weekend, they won't just be battling each other. The predicted rain could turn this race into a test of pure racecraft, where raw talent and adaptability take center stage. If conditions get tricky, we might see which driver truly has the upper hand when the grip disappears, the visibility drops, and split-second decisions make the difference between glory and disaster. But the real intrigue? McLaren is in a position where every point matters. They've been closing the gap to Ferrari, but internal fights could cost them valuable points. It's the classic dilemma: let the drivers race or step in to prevent chaos. If Suzuka delivers unpredictable conditions, Norris and Piastri will have to balance their personal ambitions with the team's bigger picture. And let's be real, if Piastri suddenly looks like the stronger driver at McLaren, how long before we start hearing whispers about Norris looking elsewhere? Meanwhile, another team faces a different kind of challenge. Not internal rivalry, but the struggle of staying relevant in a sport that's moving forward without them. Mercedes has found itself in a strange position, too good to be written off, but not good enough to be a true title contender. They're stuck in the no man's land between Red Bull and the rest of the grid, and right now, it's George Russell carrying the team forward. With back-to-back podiums in the last two races, Russell has been the one keeping Mercedes in the fight. The question is, can he keep this momentum going at Suzuka? This track is a true test of driver ability. It's fast, it's unforgiving, and in the rain, it becomes one of the trickiest circuits on the calendar. If Russell wants to continue proving he's the future of Mercedes, this is the kind of race where he needs to shine. He's already shown he can fight at the front when the car allows it. Now, it's about consistency. Then there's the looming question of Kimi Antonelli. The young Italian isn't racing in F1 yet, but the buzz around him is growing by the day. Toto Wolff sees him as the next big thing, and every time Mercedes struggles, the speculation about Antonelli's arrival gets louder. If Russell keeps delivering, his seat is safe. But if he slips up, especially in a race where Mercedes could capitalize on chaos, the conversation shifts. The other big unknown? How much progress Mercedes has actually made. They've been bringing updates, but are they enough to put them in the mix with Red Bull and Ferrari? Suzuka could give us a real answer. If Russell fights for a podium again, it's a sign that Mercedes is genuinely improving. But if they struggle, the pressure on their 2025 development skyrockets. For Russell, this race isn't just about finishing well, it's about solidifying his status as the undisputed team leader before Antonelli arrives. Because if Mercedes starts looking to the future, he can't afford to be anything less than exceptional. And speaking of pressure, no one is feeling it more than Liam Lawson. Formula One is brutal. One moment, you're a rising star with a Red Bull seat, and the next, You're sitting on the sidelines watching someone else take your opportunity. That's exactly what's happened to Liam Lawson. After a strong showing as a reserve driver in 2023 and impressive stand-in performances, it looked like he was on the fast track to a full-time Red Bull drive. But just 2 races into the 2025 season, he's been dropped in favor of Yuki Tsunoda. And what makes it even worse? It happened right before one of the most important races of the year, Suzuka. This isn't just any Grand Prix. Suzuka is a track that holds a special place in Red Bull's history. It's where Max Verstappen clinched one of his titles, and it's where Honda, Red Bull's longtime partner, has home field advantage. If there was ever a race for Lawson to prove himself, it would have been this one. Instead, he'll be watching from the sidelines while Tsunoda gets the shot he's been working toward for years. And the way it all went down, even more painful. Lawson openly admitted that he struggled with Red Bull's 2025 car in China. The RB21 isn't easy to handle. It has a narrow operating window, and even Max Verstappen has commented on how tricky it can be. But Tsunoda? He came out of the Red Bull simulator saying the car wasn't even that hard to drive. That comment alone must have felt like a dagger to Lawson. It's one thing to get replaced, but it's another to hear your replacement act like the thing that got you benched wasn't even a challenge. So what happens next? Red Bull has a history of being ruthless with their drivers, and if Tsunoda performs well at Suzuka, Lawson's hopes of getting back into the main team could fade quickly. On the other hand, if Tsunoda struggles, maybe, just maybe, there's still a way back in for Lawson later this season. But as things stand right now, his dream of a Red Bull seat is slipping away. And the harshest reality? This is Formula One. No one is going to wait for him to bounce back. He either finds a way to prove himself again, or he risks being forgotten in a sport that moves at 300 kilometers per hour, both on and off the track. And if there's one thing that could throw another curveball into this unpredictable weekend, it's the weather. This Sunday, Suzuka looks set to deliver exactly that. The forecast is calling for a 70% chance of rain on race day, and if history has taught us anything, it's that a wet Japanese Grand Prix is pure chaos. Suzuka is already one of the most challenging circuits on the calendar. It's fast, it's flowing, and it punishes mistakes. Now, add in unpredictable weather, reduced visibility, and a track surface that gets slippery in all the wrong places, and you have a recipe for absolute madness. In the past, we've seen wet races here deliver everything from surprise winners to massive crashes. But here's the real question: who benefits from a wet Suzuka? Max Verstappen. Historically, Max has been solid but not invincible in the rain. He's had some iconic wet weather drives, but he's also had moments where things haven't gone his way. If the Red Bull is tricky to handle in normal conditions, how will it behave on a soaked track? Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, after their disqualification heartbreak in China, they're coming into this weekend hungry. Hamilton, in particular, has always been strong in the wet. If Ferrari gives him a competitive car, don't be surprised if he's in the mix for a big result. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the McLaren duo, has been in top form, and rain could be the equalizer that helps them fight at the front. If strategy calls come into play, McLaren's bold approach could work in their favor. Yuki Tsunoda, this is where things get interesting. Racing in the rain at his home Grand Prix, in his first race with Red Bull under immense pressure, how will he handle it? If he thrives, he could turn this into a career-defining moment. But if he struggles, the criticism will come fast. George Russell and Mercedes. Mercedes is in a strange spot right now. They're not quick enough to fight for wins outright, but in a wet race, strategy and tire management could bring them into play. Russell, who has already shown he can deliver in tricky conditions, could be one to watch. One thing is certain, a wet Suzuka doesn't just create drama, it changes everything. If the rain comes at just the right time, we could see pit stops decide the race. If it's torrential, we could see safety cars, red flags, or even a race-shortening scenario. And if it's a race where grip is constantly shifting, expect some unexpected heroes, and maybe even a few villains. With so many storylines already in play, throwing rain into the mix might just be the final ingredient for an unforgettable Japanese Grand Prix. The Japanese Grand Prix is shaping up to be the most unpredictable race of the season so far. We have Yuki Tsunoda stepping into a Red Bull for the first time in front of his home crowd, Max Verstappen facing a new teammate who refuses to back down, and two of the sport's biggest stars, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, desperate for redemption. Add in the McLaren rivalry, the pressure mounting at Mercedes, and Liam Lawson watching his F1 dreams slip away, and you already have a race packed with drama. But then, we have the wild card, the weather. A dry race is one thing, but if the rain comes, all bets are off. Strategy, skill, and a little bit of luck could make the difference between victory and disaster. So, will we see a classic Max Verstappen masterclass? Will Tsunoda shock the world at home? Can Ferrari bounce back? And how much of a mess will the rain create? Whatever happens, one thing is for sure. Suzuka is ready to deliver,